Today we're going to dive into as much info as we can, confirmed, leaked, or otherwise, as well as use my personal experience with extraction shooters to try and pierce the veil and guess what Bungie is going to do with Marathon. There's a lot of information that's come out and been leaked since then, and a lot of it can be looked at through the lens of Escape from Tarkov and Hunt, and kind of give us an idea of where Bungie's going to land with this title. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it with the loadout system. When we're talking about loadouts, we touched on it briefly in the first video on basics of extraction shooters, but I definitely want something more like Hunt. It's a system that's a lot more quick and intuitive to use, and it minimizes your time in the menu. Now, according to Insider Gaming, who originally leaked Marathon was in development, there's a system of permanent perks and losable implants that you can incorporate into your loadout. According to their article, these perks are not lost on death, and they provide passive enhancement style benefits, such as reduced oxygen usage and faster revives. On the other hand, implants seem to be abilities that are either activatable or are just very strong defining passives that can be lost on death. Their example was night vision, which highlights enemy outlines. The idea of perks and implants makes me look at Hunt's system with its traits and burn traits. Now, if we look at Hunt quickly, it balances its perk system by having different costs, stronger perks usually costing more, and by having some rare, really powerful perks that spawn only in-game with one-time uses or loss conditions. So if we're comparing traits and perks in Marathon, which would be the passive buffs, they could be akin to things like Gator Legs, Kite Skin, or Mythandrist, which are definitely helpful benefits, but they're not game-changing. Whereas implants, on the other hand, could be more like Necromancer, Fanning, or Shadow. These abilities drastically change any engagement you're in and expand your options in any given encounter. They didn't have a whole lot of information here regarding how the actual system works, but it seems like you'll be able to equip a couple, maybe 3 or 4 perks, and might have the opportunity to switch them in between games. They seem kind of low impact, passive things that might just make your style a bit easier to go with. And then you should be able to buy, loot, or steal implants for bigger boosts that make you nervous to die. Now that we've talked about that system, I'm going to give you a brief MS Paint look at how I kind of envision and want to see the loadout system look in Marathon. So the way I have it set up is 2 weapons, a primary and a secondary, whether these are full weapons or a rifle and a pistol or something. If it's just that you can bring any 2 weapons that you would like, that's probably more comparable to regular extraction shooters, and it would make the most sense. Now, underneath the guns, I have 4 equipment slots. I put 4 here just as a nod to Hunt, but really they might put these in your backpack or somewhere else. But let's just say they give you 4 equipment slots for things like meds, things like stims, maybe grenades, other random tools, EMPs, anything like that. Would probably go here. Then on the right, I have a backpack slot, which is who knows how big, how many slots it would be, etc. But let's just say you have to equip a backpack and you can choose a backpack of different sizes to carry a different amount of things. Then underneath that, I just put perks, which is where you put your passive benefits. Let's say I put 3 here. It could be more, could be less, who knows. But let's just say they're here on your screen. And then just in the middle, implants. It just seems like a nice little place to put implants if your character is going to be in the center. Adjacent to this topic of loadouts, let's talk about free loadouts. Free loadouts would be something like Scavenging and Tarkov or using a free hunter in Hunt. Realistically, they could go either way with this if they want to just give you a general loadout and send you into the middle of a match and whatever happens, happens. You know, definitely they can go the scav style from Tarkov, but really I would prefer a free loadout system more similar to Hunt, where you're buying the whole loadout and you can swap out pieces if you want to, versus going in with just what you have. Having a free loadout system like this lets you make up the gaps and save money without having to fully commit to going in with nothing but a pistol with 1 mag and no meds. You can at least buy the free thing and put on the meds that you want to give you a real good chance of living. Let's talk economy. Economy in extraction shooters is what we're just going to use to cover how you gain money, how you spend money, what you're spending money on, if there's anything that is a trade system or a sell system, are there vendors, are there traders, are there in-game bonuses that you can earn, etc. Now we already know they have lootable items, and they're going to have value attached to them, given you can combine artifacts to just make them more valuable to sell. So it seems like Bungie's going more for a Tarkov style of economy where you are going in and looting objects to sell, probably to some vendor of some kind. Are there multiple? Is there one trader? We don't know that for sure. But there will be at least one person that you will interact with to give these objects to. Now they did also mention that weapons and implants will be available to loot in maps. Most likely you'll be able to sell those as well if you want to make a profit off of them. Or you could use them. Now without a doubt you're going to be using that money to buy your loadouts, buy your weapons, buy your equipment, etc. So it's not really a question of what you're going to be spending it on. We kind of have that idea down. If they have extra things to spend it on, all the better for them. But what this really means for you is that you won't have to really chase a common match objective and be forced to fight other players to build up your funds if you don't want to. In this sense, it's more of that Tarkov style than Hunt style, where Hunt pushes you into PvP by giving you one objective where you will make 80 to 90% of your income. And while in Tarkov, you can go about, do your own thing, kill AI, sneak around, loot up some loose items, and escape without really seeing anybody and still make a profit. Now for quests and objectives. Funny enough, I'm looking at this article for the first time since it came out. I definitely read it originally when it released, but it's been a year and change since then. But they actually have pretty much the same gameplay loop that they wrote in here for Marathon as I did in my Marathon extraction shooter gameplay loop video, which is understandable as I do believe that is the gameplay loop of extraction shooters. But there's two things I want to pick on here. One, they have spending XP on updates. Now this isn't mentioned anywhere else in the article, and it could just mean perks or implants, but it might be its own system and is definitely something to keep an eye out for when we hear more from Bungie. Secondly, the quest and objective setting step is worded a bit strangely to me. They wrote, choose your missions to complete in-game. If it said pick up quests, I'd say it's similar to Tarkov, but this sounds a bit more like COD DMZ to me, or maybe just operational tasks in Tarkov. They sound more like loot 20 computer parts or kill 20 aliens than a story progressing quest, but that could just be wording and could be wrong. However, given the mention of hunting for loot, completing missions, or exploring to find secrets, I think it's safer to say that they want the more free-form objective style of extraction shooters like Tarkov over Hunt's single objective, really push PvP style. And personally, I love to have those options. It makes solo play much more playable, and it gives a lot of opportunity for new players to come in and not go after such big PvP zones. You can kind of go off to the sidelines and do your own thing where no one's going to bother you because they're all fighting in the middle of the map. Alright, let's talk character customization versus heroes. Now, this leak from IGN, it strikes me as weird. It's just worded a little strange, and they don't give a source, but they also haven't really given us much leaked information about Marathon in the past, and I don't think I've seen any Destiny stuff from them either. Those are usually from third-party sources, and at least in Insider Gaming's case, they did correctly leak that Marathon was in development, so I give them some credit for that. But this doesn't really have anything backing it up as far as I'm concerned, and the actual quotes themselves are a little bit vague. Now, they could be misconstrued, they could be, a little game of telephone where someone's saying something and then somebody else picks it up a little bit different, and then by the time we get to where we are, we have picking from a cast of heroes. This doesn't give me Overwatch vibes. This gives me more of Hunt Showdown's Legends or Call of Duty skins, but that wouldn't necessarily mean they aren't customizable. They could definitely hand out base skins and then let you customize the base models of the characters or something like that, right? There's so many ways that a cast of heroes could be misconstrued that I don't really have anything to say on this other than wait and see what we hear from Bungie down the line. In terms of maps, the Insider article mentions 3 maps are in development for launch, which doesn't sound like a lot to most games, but for an extraction shooter, it is a very good number. Hunt came out with 2 maps, has its 3rd map now several years after release, and we're waiting on the 4th one still. Tarkov definitely has a lot more maps, but it's been in development for a lot longer. So again, for an extraction shooter, 3 maps is a very competitive number, and it's totally fine. Remember, these are usually about the size of a battle royale map, with very diverse layouts for large and close range engagements. So while it might sound weird to only have 3 maps, there is going to be a lot of ground to cover, and 3 is a pretty good number for being able to get around and learn these maps. It's going to take a lot of time to cover all the ground, find all the routes, find out where everything spawns, where things can spawn if they have randomly spawning things, which they most likely will from what it sounds like. So it makes it a lot easier for newer players to learn the game if they keep it kind of reined in at 3 instead of doing 10 battle royale maps and you have to learn every single one. You can kind of focus in with 3 and learn those over probably like 6 months before I would even consider adding a new map, if even. As of now, this is planned to be the last video for this playlist. Obviously, if something comes up and I want to put some more stuff into here, I definitely will. But after this, we're going into a new playlist that I'm going to title, most likely, the Extraction Shooter Crash Course. This is going to be a more concept-focused series where we're going to discuss a bit more advanced theories as well as hurdles that you might have to overcome to really engage with and enjoy extraction shooters. This is going to be things such as map traversal as well as gear fear. Next video is definitely going to be about gear fear, and it might take me a little bit to parse out exactly how I want to do this, so just bear with me on that. And I'm going to try and tie it into Marathon just with some information from Tarkov and Hunt. It's going to be a bit more general than just a Marathon. It should apply to obviously both of those games as well as Marathon. So if you are interested in that, subscribe down below and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Let's go ahead and get into some really fun topics. We're going to start with movement and gunplay, which personally I'm looking for the movement to feel just like Destiny, except without the abilities and less floaty in the air. We can be, a little bit faster, but just a bit heavier. No double jumps, no in-air dashing, no speed boost, none of that stuff. Just the regular boots on the ground Destiny. Whatever else they want to try, that's probably fine. I just think that their base movement is very solid, and I would like to see it in a more pure form without all the extra stuff in Destiny that I think complicates it for a lot of newcomers. The gunplay is much the same. I really like the way that Bungie makes their guns feel. The recoil, the aim assist, the punchiness, the sound. It's always a treat. Hopefully all of the weapons get the same attention to detail as the exotic weapons do in Destiny. I'm hoping that while we have some variety in terms of what the weapons are, they can all be really unique, because I don't think there should be 47 different assault rifles, right? And I don't think that anybody that's played a Bungie game would say that Bungie's guns feel bad. I think everyone is on the same page in terms of Bungie making really good feeling guns. So I just want to preserve that feel, keep it going. Easy one for Bungie to keep up with. To go with those, we've got AI and PvP. We're definitely going to have some AI enemies, as we've already seen a compiler and it was mentioned in the Vidoc. And obviously we're going to have a PvP focus as well. That said, PvP is usually more sparse than PvE in these games, and I'd really love to have a large amount of AI to fight and for PvP to be more of a constant threat, but not constantly be engaged in it. Realistically, they could have packs of mobs around the map who drop sellable loot to give you some income, and still have escape routes and spaces to let you try and avoid PvP, or at least if you do get into PvP, have reasonable ways to play around it after fighting the AI. I'd really like for these AI packs to have a sizable number of enemies, as well as drop really good loot, or at least loot that drops in a high enough value and low enough concentration that you can reasonably loot all of them and sell things and make a profit. The benefits to a more casual group of being able to load in, kill a couple AI, and then make it out and sell those things, and to reasonably be able to afford paying for your loadouts, is really nice. Personally, in Tarkov, there was a lot of times where I would be broke and I would go in and kill scavs and pick up their stuff and just sell that. And that's how I made some money for a while until I was able to get back up and go to PvP places. So I'm a very big proponent of having the option for newer players or people who prefer to fight PvE enemies to be able to reasonably find them, fight them, and not have to get into PvP every single time. That said, when we do get into PvP, I want PvP to be lethal but fair. So I'm thinking low time to kill, but no armor or extra health or better ammo to change the time to kill. Typically, extraction shooters are very lethal, right? So Hunt and Tarkov, almost any weapon, if it hits the head, is going to one-shot somebody, or even one pellet them in Tarkov if you're shooting buckshot. Most of the time, one pellet will put somebody down if it hits them in the head. But then Tarkov has things like armor and different ammos doing different damage, or different pens to different armor, and armors in different places, and some places are covered in armor and some aren't. That's really complicated, and I don't think it reasonably changes the gameplay apart from making some people feel like they never had a chance. And sometimes when you just buy those armor, you feel like, why did I even buy the armor? So I just prefer no armor, keep it like Hunt, where, yeah, you get one tapped in the head, you get 2 to 3 tapped in the chest, but you always know what your risk is. PvP fights should come down to your aim, movement, position, utility usage, and the optimal use of your chosen weapons. You should know your weapon's effectiveness and be able to consistently trust how it will perform, and you should be able to identify and predict the effectiveness of your enemy's guns. Obviously, they should all play uniquely, and there will probably be some of the best guns. But as long as every weapon has its own reasonable niche you can play around to outperform these optimal weapons, they'll be fine. In simple terms, I want the face-to-face PvP to be simple and nowhere near something like Tarkov. It should be readable, understandable, and you should be able to get out of a fight and realize what you did right or wrong. Along with this, in the Bungie Vidoc for Marathon, we got mentions of a downed and res system. This is perfect for keeping players in the game and to reduce the bad luck curse. It'll give you some extra chances if something goes wrong. In the event of going down and getting revived though, there should be a penalty to prevent infinite fighting. Hunt chooses to reduce your max HP every time you're downed until you're out of health bars. Once you're out of health bars, you cannot be revived without special items, namely the bounty. I could see Bungie doing this, but they might incorporate a wound system instead. In the Insider article, they mention a wound system with things like concussions periodically blurring your screen, or waste damage causing you to lose oxygen faster. Whether these are downed punishments to push you to extract, or if they're similar to Tarkov systems of debuffs that you have to pack medical items for, is unclear, but either of them would be fine, and I would be glad to have a res system at all. It makes it a lot easier to keep newer players in the game, and once you're playing the game a lot, it extends gunfights, it keeps you engaged, and it means as long as you have a friend in the game, you're not necessarily out of the game. Now let's back it up for just a second. I did mention oxygen in the last section. Oxygen is mentioned in the Insider article as your personal match timer, which can be drained faster or slower, and replenished with refill canisters. Now, Bungie did state they want to have persistent zones that you go into, so it makes sense if your only limiting factor is how much oxygen you have. That would limit how long you can be in an activity. But it could also just work alongside a maximum game timer, similar to how Tarkov uses hunger and thirst in combination with the match timer to push you to move. If they are going to put an oxygen system into this game, I think it would be really interesting if they built up some unique mechanics that use oxygen. Maybe there's some low gravity areas where you could use oxygen to move faster, or maybe there's some consumable or secrets on the map that you need to input a certain amount of oxygen to get into. But at least, even if it's just a timer extension for your own personal timer, having some canisters to refill it that you can buy, which are said to be expensive, or said to be found in game, is a totally viable and fine implementation of the system in my mind. Now, like it or not, there's going to be monetization in this game. Bungie hasn't said there's going to be monetization in this game, but realistically, if they intend to continue updating and expanding on the game, it's going to cost them money, and to that end, they are going to release monetization of some kind. That said, my only hope is to see nothing like expansions or seasons in Destiny, nothing that would change or update gameplay mechanics behind a paywall. No new guns, no new equipment, no new perks, no new traits, none of that behind a paid expansion. I think that would kill the game, and Bungie, I think, understands that, given they haven't released anything into Crucible like maps, etc. for paid DLC because they don't want to split the player base. I think they understand the repercussions of doing that in the modern era. That said, what we might see is cosmetics, a battle pass, things of that sort. I would definitely be totally okay if they sent out a battle pass and it has cosmetics in it, because I won't buy that unless I'm really going to start playing the game and I'm really into it. And I would also recommend don't buy a battle pass unless you're really going to play it. Things in the store, if store objects are your thing, go for it. Yeah, if they release a skin and it's a really cool skin, go buy the skin if you really want to, if you want to support Bungie. But obviously, any kind of microtransaction, be wary of and be aware of what it is, and don't just hand out your money for free. So let's bring everything together, right? I've talked about a lot of these topics individually, but as a whole, there is a very specific niche that I want Marathon to take. Obviously, I said I wanted the blend of Hunt and Tarkov's mechanics, or aspects of their mechanics. But at the end of the day, I am looking at Marathon being an accessible, easy to learn, hard to master extraction shooter. When I look at things like Tarkov, it's really dense, it's not beginner friendly, and it's not necessarily just because, it's lethal, you die really fast. It is all the things around you going in, from the ammo, the armor, the bag space, everything is complicated, it's hard to learn for new players, and it keeps people out. And Hunt is really slow. I think that's the main thing that keeps people away from it. It's really slow, really PvP focused, almost no reward for doing PvE without doing a ton of PvP. And both of those push away more casual players. But I think Marathon can combine these to become a very new player friendly extraction shooter. There's no reason that a game that you die quickly in can't appeal to a lot of people. And things like the res system will make it a lot more friendly for players who see extraction shooters as too lethal. If you have the opportunity to be revived when you're downed, it's a lot less intimidating than something like Tarkov, when people assume you die, you get shot, you get headshot, you're done. You don't get back up. But it doesn't have to be that way. And Hunt's proven that, and I think it's a totally great system. They've already mentioned having AI on the map, which I think is going to be great for new players. You can practice with guns, you can take in cheap things, you can make money off of them. That's perfect. As long as they don't stuff the map with too many players, everybody will have an opportunity to play the game and get some fun out of it. So I think at the end of the day, the game will be fun, it will be fast, it will be understandable. Obviously, there's probably going to be things that some people will need explained, or maybe mechanics that we don't know about off rip, and that's fine. It should have some depth, right? But people should be able to load into the game, read whatever tutorial or whatever training materials Bungie puts in here, and be able to go in and play the game reasonably well. They shouldn't have to sit there and ask too many questions about how to lean, or how to aim down their gun, or where to find ammo. Things like that should be pretty simple for them to find. That's all my thoughts on Marathon right now, a couple of my predictions for the mechanics and how the base of the game might play. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I could still talk about or look into, but I don't really want to dive too much into the nitty-gritty, given we have very little information out here yet. But given what we do have, I think it is pretty predictable how Marathon is going to incorporate all of these aspects and make them a little bit more accessible to players, a little less unforgiving. I don't expect I blew away anybody's head with that one and gave you a big mind blast, but if you did enjoy this, or if you have any topics that you want to discuss or other information that you would want to bring into the conversation, definitely leave a comment down below and I'll go ahead and take a look at those and discuss further with you all. And obviously, if we come up with enough differences or new things to talk about, I will go ahead and put that into a new video. That's all for this week, runners. Remember, in the heavens, they are waiting. God, I can't wait to do this Dungeon of the fucking Recluse next week. Or sorry, tomorrow.
Oh my! That was amazing.
Saddle, come here. Come here, Saddle. Come here, Saddle. I've never felt so connected with another human.